Okay, so I'm going to look at another example here. But I'd show you some Seattle snowscape here. We have our most snow almost in 100 years for the month of February. So no school on Tuesday, so here's another video. I'm going to do a couple of things involving some of the stuff from Chapter 4 and dipping into Chapter 5. So the example we're going to look at is write a class that will ask the user to input a series of words one at a time and stop when the user enters a sentinel or quit value. So this is going to use an indefinite loop or a sentinel loop. The class will then output both the longest and the shortest words. And we'll understand that if two words have the same length, then either one can represent the longest or the shortest. So this is an example of basically a max-min problem where we're either maximizing or minimizing the length of a word. But those words are string objects as opposed to just integers. Okay, so looking at a little bit of pseudocode first, what has to happen here? We need to be able to ask the user to input a word, and then as long as that word isn't the word quit, we need to check and see if it's the longest word, and if it is, update that longest word, or see if it's the shortest word, and again, if it is, update that shortest word, and then keep doing that until they enter the word quit. So I think I'll do the whole thing. Well, maybe I'll have one function. I'm not sure yet. So let's look at the pseudocode. We're going to get the first word, and then while that word is not quit, we're going to decide if it's the longest word, and if it is, update it. Then we'll decide if it's the shortest word, and if it is, we're going to update it. And then we have to get the word again. And then at the end, we'll output the results. So we'll notice a couple of things in here. This get word could be a function, a method. So whether we're getting the first word or not, it should be the same function. So because it's happening here more than once or multiple times, we'll set that up as a method. Output results I've already set up as a method. Get word would return a word. So I'm writing pseudocode, but that would need to equal a word. And then each time we called it, we would be updating that word. So then how do you decide if something is the longest or the shortest? We check and see what its length is in comparison to something. So we need to be able to compare the word that we get to something else. So up here in the beginning, we need to initialize longest and shortest words in order to be able to compare the word that we get from the user to something. So when we're initializing the words, we have to think about, well, what would the shortest word be? Would be a word with nothing in it, and the longest word would be a word with nothing in it. So when we initialize those to strings, we would initialize them to an empty string or a string that contains nothing. All right, so I'm going to jump over to Eclipse, and we'll code this in. Maybe I'll shrink myself down a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to do a new class. Call it longest, shortest word. Look static void main. I'll go ahead and put my comments in. Today is the 11th. Longest, shortest word for this method, this class will ask the user to input words until they input a sentinel quit value. For the sentinel quit value, oftentimes with numbers, it would be a -1, or we could just use the letter Q. In this case, we're going to use the word quit. And then it will output the longest and the shortest word. One thing to note here is that our program is not keeping track of all of the words that are entered. So it's not asking us to do that, which is good because we don't have lists yet, so it would be difficult for us to store all of these words if we had to store them. Okay, so in main, and jump back to my pseudocode for a second, I need to initialize both the longest and the shortest words, and then I need to write this function called getWord. So maybe we'll just comment that in. Initialize longest and shortest words. String longest is equal to an empty string. String shortest is equal to an empty string. It's probably good if you can code along with me, or pause, come back and code, and then come back and compare. One of those two things. I'm not exactly sure how the best way to utilize the video, but hopefully you'll find a way that works for you. Ideally, you're coding along at some point so that you're getting the practice of the coding. It helps us understand how these processes are going to work. Okay, so we need to get the first word, so I'll just comment that out as well. And the reason we need this is it's sort of like initializing the value that we're going to use for our while loop. String word equals new. No, I'm just going to call the function getWord here, which I need to write. So let's print that word. In other words, we're not going to write the whole code. We're just going to write this function to get the word initially. So what does that function look like? Public static returning a string getWord. We need a scanner. Since I'm using a scanner, I'm going to need an import statement up above. Let's put that in now. So this is showing an error here on this method because it's wanting me to return something, which I don't have anything to return yet. So we need to get that word. So I could set up the return statement if I wanted. Let's just return an empty string for a second, just to get rid of that error. Okay, so we need to prompt the user for the word. So system enter a word, and we'll put the word quit to exit. you know, that's a little bit maybe not the best way to prompt a sentinel of the word quit to exit, but maybe I put it in single quotes like that, quit to exit. Okay, I mean, the idea here is that you understand how this loop is going to work and how the sentinel value is going to work. But so once we have that in, then we can just, rather than having a word in this method, a variable word in this method, this method returns a word, so I can just return console.next, and that will be the string that they're entering. So we can run this and check whether our method getWord is working. Enter a word, hello, and it should print hello. And even here, if I enter the word quit, it's not going to quit, it's just going to, you know, enter the word quit. It just recognizes it as a word because we haven't told it to do anything with that word quit yet. Okay, so back up in main, we've initialized our longest and shortest words, and we've gotten our first word. Get rid of this print statement. Now I'm going to introduce the indefinite loop or the while loop. While, so I want that word not to be the word quit. So while word, I'm going to put a not equals to in front. So word dot equals, let's do equals ignore case, quit. So this says while the word that's entered is not equal to the word quit, do everything inside this loop. Let's go back to our pseudocode. We want to decide if it's the longest word, and if so, update longest word. Decide if it's the shortest word, and if so, update the shortest word, and then get another word. So how to decide if it's the longest word? If the longest dot length is shorter than the word dot length, so right now that longest is 0, has 0 length. If longest dot length is shorter than word dot length, then longest equals word. So if it has a shorter length, replace it. If shortest dot length is greater than, well, let's put it less than or equal to here. That way it won't care which one is longer. Shortest dot length is greater than or equal to word dot length. That doesn't feel like it's going to work to me, but I'm going to see what happens. Shortest equals word. Why don't I think that's going to work? Well, the shortest dot length is 0. That's never going to be bigger than any word. So this initialization of shortest is going to be problematic because the shortest word to begin with has 0 length. So That's the shortest that a word can be. So we won't get a shorter word than that. So we're going to have to figure out something to fix this. And I know what to do, but I'm going to hold off on it in a minute, show you why this isn't working. Okay, so while the word is not quit, if the longest is shorter than this word, replace the longest. If the shortest is bigger than this word, then replace shortest with the new word. Then what? Go back to our pseudocode. Pseudocode says, then get another word. Okay, so let's see, make sure that we're in the right place. I want to be in the while loop, but after that if statement. So now I need to get another word. And I'm going to call the function getWord again. That's within the while loop, and that should be the ending parenthesis for main. So then maybe after this, we'll just run a print statement here. Let's print the word longest. And print the word shortest. And just so we can see that if something's printing there, I'm also going to add in the word words. Okay, I'll tighten this up so you can see it clearly. And we're going to run this function, this method. Enter a word, so let's enter the word hello. It was not quit, so it's going to ask me for another word. Let's enter the word yellow. Those both have 5 letters. Let's enter the word yell, has 4 letters. And let's enter the word fellows. So that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 words. So the shortest word should be yell, the longest word should be fellows. And now we'll enter the word quit. I'll use a capital Q to see what happens. Okay, so it quit. The longest word was fellows, and you can see I have a need for a space after that, or a space between those words before the word shortest. And look here, the shortest word, that was our empty word. Shortest word there. So longest word is working, but shortest word is not. And the problem is that the initial shortest word has nothing in it. So, how do we fix this? One way to fix it would be to sort of make a very long word our shortest word. The problem with this is, what if they don't enter any words? Then the longest word would be, the shortest word would be the actual longest word. So you can't really initialize this to something with characters in it, because that could then affect the output. So what we can do still is initialize it to nothing. And then as soon as they enter something that's not quit, so where do we know something is not quit? We get the first word here, but it could be quit. But then when we enter this while loop, we have something that is not the word quit. And right here, I can establish that the shortest word at least must be as short as the word that we just got. I don't feel like that's going to work either, because each time we enter this while loop, it's going to replace the shortest word with that word. So that's not going to work either. So there's a couple of different ideas I have. what we're really worried about is that the shortest word has length 0, meaning we have an empty string to begin with. So maybe we need to make this a nested if statement. If the shortest dot length equals 0, then set shortest equal to word regardless, close that guy out, else if else if shortest dot length is greater than or equal to word length, shortest equals word. So this guy, let's extra one of those. There we go. So let's look at that logic. While the word is not quit, longest is no problem. If the shortest has length 0, then replace it with that word. Else, if the shortest dot length is greater than or equal to word dot length, so you have a longer word than the word you have, then replace shortest. This should work. It doesn't get here unless shortest has some length, unless we actually have a word to begin with. So that gets us sort of the first word. So maybe we need a comment in here that sort of says like, assign the first word, and then anything that's shorter than that replaces it. Okay, let's try. Hello, yellow, yell, together, and quit. The longest word is together, the shortest word is yell, and now that words at the end clearly doesn't make a lot of sense. So we'll get rid of that. And maybe instead of putting a space here, we'll put a new line character like that. What happens if we just quit? Then the longest word is empty, the shortest word is empty. There are no words. Run it again. So that's a good testing, a special case to test no input. What if there's just one word? Hello. And the longest word is hello, the shortest word is hello. Let's do one more. Let's enter the shortest word in first. I am making a video. Quit. So the longest word was making. Notice the shortest word was A, even though both A and I have the same length. That was because we used using the greatest and equal to, less than or equal to values to replace. Okay, so recapping, the goal for this video was to introduce a couple of things, sort of going over a max-min type problem using longest and shortest words instead of integers. Using a while loop, so our first indefinite loop, where I'm setting up a sentinel value of quit that allows me to exit the loop. When I do that, I need to have the value that allows me to enter the loop first, so I have to get the word I'm going to use first and then enter the loop, and then whatever's going on in the loop, at the end of the loop, I have to update that value. So I'm getting another word before I leave the loop, and then it goes back in and checks if that word is the word quit each time. Okay, so to end the video, I will post the code, the video and the code online. I've been posting the videos in the weekly module, but the code itself will live in the in-class code section within the reference materials module.